more break before the top of the noon hour. I know some of you are going to be joined by Garrett. Some of you are going to be joined by Linda Hurtado. Lots more news coming up in the Tampa Bay area and beyond. So be sure to stick with our website, fox13news.com. And if you're watching from Orlando, fox35orlando.com for any latest updates on all the news that our teams are on this Monday morning, now Monday afternoon. Everybody have a great Monday.
Welcome to Port Canaveral. Supporting our supply chain stability is one of the core missions of Port Canaveral. To do that, we must have deep water berthing facilities that can handle deep draft vessels heavily laden with important cargoes like fuels, salt, aggregates, and lumber. The other side of the equation is we need great partners like Seaport Canaveral who are out here working every day, all year long, to bring critical commodities to our state to meet the needs of our Floridians throughout. That means we as a port must provide the bulkhead facilities that will help them operate efficiently, reliably, day after day, year after year. And as a seaport, a bulkhead is the most valuable asset that we have, the interface between the land and the water. Building and maintaining these bulkheads are costly and they take time. Port Canaveral could not manage that alone without the partnership and investment of our federal and state partners. So thank you, Congressman Herodopoulos, Senators Mayfield and Wright. Thank you for all that you do for the state of Florida, and most importantly, thank you for your continuing support of Port Canaveral's mission. And with that, I'd like to introduce Congressman Herodopoulos to the stand.
Well, thank you very much. It is great to be here. Good morning, and on the Florida's Space Coast, we're preparing for our future in order to protect our growing economy. This project will continue to keep Central Florida moving and ensure our ports, our families, our businesses, and our airports have the fuel they need every single day. So today I'm proud to join Port Canaveral leadership, our state and local partners, to announce more than $20 million through the Port Infrastructure Development Program, and combined with state and local dollars, a total of $37 million to make sure that we have the fuel we need to make sure that Central Florida continues to grow and thrive. As we all know, Port Canaveral is one of the most important ports in the country. It provides vital fuel and cargo needs. Every day, the fuel unloaded here supports our communities, fuels our vehicles, powers our airports, supplies the cruise industry, and keeps commerce moving throughout Central Florida and beyond. In fact, Port Canaveral supplies the majority of the jet fuel used at Orlando International Airport. This project will expand the port's fuel handling capabilities to meet the demands of a rapidly growing state. And the numbers do tell the story. More than 59,000 fuel trucks are loaded here every year. Over 250 tanks and barge visits come through this facility annually. And in 2024, this port sustained and surpassed an incredible milestone: 1 million trucks loaded in order to make sure the Central Florida economy continues to grow. It's also providing the fuel needed for the challenges of our day. Back in 2024, when Hurricane Milton hit, Port Canaveral stepped up in a major way. During a record-breaking week, this facility loaded more than 30 million gallons of fuel, while trucks were being refueled every 17 minutes. The fact is, when disaster strikes, Americans don't think about politics. They think about whether their gas station is full, whether supplies can meet our communities, and whether critical infrastructure is strong enough to withstand that crisis. And Port Canaveral proved that it truly is ready to meet the challenge. And this investment ensures that it stays that way for decades to come. Again, I want to thank our partners, not just at the state level, but also, of course, our local partners as well, to make this $37 million project possible in order to keep the Central Florida economy growing and leading the nation. Florida continues to grow, and it'll be projects like this, more than ever that will strengthen our supply chain, support our jobs, and will make sure we have the energy reliability necessary to reinforce Florida's position as one of the leaders in the world on trade, aerospace, and commerce. As I mentioned, this is a partnership. It's not just Washington, D.C., but it's our state and local partners that really make this happen. This is an engine for our future, and I'm just so excited to be here and show that we can bring real results to this community. As everyone knows, the port is a
Welcome to Port Canaveral. Supporting our supply chain stability is one of the core missions of Port Canaveral. To do that, we must have deep water berthing facilities that can handle deep draft vessels heavily laden with important cargoes like fuels, salt, aggregates, and lumber. The other side of the equation is we need great partners like Seaport Canaveral, who are out here working every day, all year long, to bring critical commodities to our state to meet the needs of our Floridians throughout. That means we as the port must provide
Can you hear me? Checks. We have found a Toyota key. So if you're missing a key, that's really bad. Glad we did a check. Okay.
Test, test, mic check. Test, test. Can you hear Christian? Test, test. Mic check, mic check. Test, test. Mic check. You're good? I talk low. Do you want all the mics or? Mic check, test, test. Yeah, I think we're good. Oh, yeah. Test, test, mic check. That's perfect. Test, test. Good morning, everybody. I know we had a bunch of new people come in since I made the first announcements. If you wouldn't mind, please silence your cell phone so we could avoid any disturbances during the roundtable. And then towards the end, if he does take questions, that part is for the media only. So please no standing up and shouting out any questions or raising hands. We will get started soon. Thank you.
want to make sure everybody had a chance to silence your phones, and questions will only be from the media, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we got some panelists that are going to come on up here. There's this guy in a sheriff's outfit. Nobody knows who this guy is, right? I mean, I want to thank Sheriff Ivey. We also have Megan Wright from the school board. Then we have Leanne and Jackie, who are Florida residents and homeowners, and they're going to talk about an issue that I know a lot of people have on their minds. I also want to welcome some of our legislators. We have Senators Mayfield and Wright, and they've done a really good job for you guys. It looks like Hodgers and Miller, your state reps, two of them are here, so I want to thank them. Brevard County School Board members. We've got Mayor of Cape Canaveral, Titusville, Palms. Man, you guys got a lot of folks. Good. It's handwriting's not great. So
our property appraiser here too.
Property appraiser, good. Well, welcome. So I want to say it's great to be back 2 weeks in a row to Brevard County. So it's a good place to be, and there's a lot of good folks here, and you guys have done a lot of great things, and obviously part of the reason you got some great local officials here. Wayne has done a great job. I'm going to show you your school board is so much better than it was 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I remember some of those battles during COVID. And so it's always good to see. Now, we are right now, and I know we have some of the legislators here. You know, the legislative session ended in middle of March. There was not a budget that was done, which was what was expected, and so they're now kind of working on this, and I think that they should get it done. I mean, I hope that they should get it done. They need to get it done on behalf of the folks, throughout the state. And, we've done very well on budget since I've been governor. We've quadrupled the rainy day fund. We have either the lowest or second lowest per capita spending of any state in the country. We have the lowest number of state government workers per capita in the entire United States of America. I'm actually going tomorrow night. I'm going to be speaking at the New York State Republican Convention or something like that. You know, it's like, wow, I mean, like some of those people are going to probably be voting here soon, even though I'm not asking anyone to move here, just the way it goes. So we're doing that. But I know that we now have millions of more people than New York State does, and yet their budget is over twice the size of the budget of the state of Florida. New York City, 8 million people, their budget is bigger than the budget of the state of Florida with 23.5 million people. And wait till you see what happens when this mayor takes over the grocery stores. That's going to cause costs to go up even more. And I think, I know this year we're spending less than we did the year before, and the year before spent less than the year before that. And I think this next budget will probably come in even less than what we were doing now. I don't think there's any other place in the country that's doing that. So hopefully that gets done soon. I know these legislators want to get that done. But we always said there's certain things we have to do. And then, once there's a budget agreement, then we move forward on putting something on the ballot for property tax. And this is something that a lot of people have been talking about for a long time. And it comes out of a couple things. I mean, I think the reality is since COVID, this country's had the worst inflation it's had in 40 years. And you see it now, unfortunately, you see gas prices, you see groceries, you see all these different things compared to where you were like in, 2020 fall of 2020 till now. How much does it cost to go to the grocery store? How much does it cost to do this? I run 3 kids through the McDonald's drive-through, and that is not as cheap as it used to be. It is not cheap at all. I mean, like, I can sit down some places. So people have been seeing this for a long time. Now, we've done a lot during my tenure as governor, to help folks, more affordable, be friends of the taxpayer. We've done almost $10 billion in tax cuts, and that's things from, we made the exclusion of sales tax for baby items permanent. And so diapers, wipes, all this other stuff, you don't pay tax on it anymore, whereas you did before. Now, I signed that into law about 6 months after our youngest got out of diapers. And so my wife's always asked me, why didn't you do it your first year? Well, we didn't have, it was a different context. So we did that. So that's been really, really good. We've also made other holidays, sales tax holidays permanent, back to school, some of the ones with disaster relief. So if you need to prepare, hopefully we don't have any disaster strike this hurricane season, but there's always a possibility. So you can do that. We eliminated the tax on commercial business rent, which was not good for a lot of small businesses, and that's been very positive. We did a toll rebate program, 50% reduction in tolls for commuters across Florida. Different parts of the state feel that more. I mean, as you get closer to Orlando, it's really bad. There's like everywhere you look, they have tolls up. Miami, that, and so some other pockets. But people would go through and they would just get a 50% credit. We did that for several years, and people really, really liked it. And so we did that to help. Then we've also just held the cost of things that we control, where we have since I've been governor, there's not been 1 penny of increase for in-state tuition at our public universities. And we have the cheapest tuition. And if you are good scores and high performing, you get Bright Future Scholarship, which could pay for it all, depending on how well you do. We have things like the Florida prepaid program where people can pay, and then when it's time for their kid to go to college, they just go, and they don't have to pay anything at that point. Well, because we've held tuition down the way we have, we were in a situation where this prepaid program was running big surpluses because it was assuming tuition would go up like it does everywhere else. And so we've been able to rebate billions of dollars back to families for the prepaid to say, you know what, you've paid enough. You don't need to pay more. Now, do you think they would refund you in California for that? No, or in some, of course not. So we've done that, which is really, really good. We did My Safe Florida Home program, where we provide grants, matching grants to homeowners who are making home hardening improvements, and then they get a reduction in insurance rates. And we did that. We've helped tens of thousands of people. Now, the legislature didn't fully fund the people that got on the wait list a year and a half ago. I've tried to haggle with that. I think they should have done that. The reality is it's still helped an awful lot of people. We've also done things like tort reform, which has now caused these auto insurance companies to actually offer lower rates. And so we're the only state in the country where car insurance is going down. If you shop around, you have a great opportunity as a consumer now because of that. And we see the same thing across various markets. So we're happy to have done that. But the reality is, if someone's paying more for groceries, they're paying more for this. That's beyond what the state government can do in terms of I can't control what milk costs or what any of this other stuff costs. It's just the way it is. The one thing though we can control as Floridians is what taxes are appropriate either at the state or local government. That's purely a government function. We have it within our power to change that and to give people relief if we so choose. So we've done all this at the state level, which we're proud of. But, at the end of the day, we don't have income tax, which we're happy we don't have. We don't do property tax at the state level. That's a local function. And so the things that we've done, while meaningful, the thing that I think people from a tax perspective will talk to you about is the property tax. And here's just where we are with this. Again, this is all going to local governments. In 2019, all local governments in Florida took in $32 billion of revenue from property taxes. That's homestead, non-homestead, commercial, all of it. Today, that number is $60 billion, 7 years later. And so, the question is Florida's budget is basically been flat or declining over the last 4 years. Yeah, how do you go from 32? Home values have gone up. Especially, we had a 2 or 3 year period where everyone and their brother was escaping to Florida because they were being treated horribly in San Francisco and some of these other places. And so people were buying these properties sight unseen. You had these bidding wars. Things would be on the market for 10 minutes, and someone would just buy it. I mean, it was really crazy. But the reality is there was a lot of demand. Housing went up nationwide anyways, I think, because of the inflation. But in Florida, the values went up even more because there was authentic demand to be able to do it. And there has been homes being built. We're not like in New York where they'll let you build anything, but at the same time, it's just the demand outstripped the supply. And so you saw that. Well, if you're just if you're somebody looking to buy a home, that's more difficult to afford because a home that 7 years ago would have been $350,000, that may be $700,000 now, or $750,000, or $600,000. It's definitely more. So that makes it tough for people trying to get into the market. But then if you're somebody who owns these homes, well, guess what? The value has gone up, and so does your tax bill. And you haven't done anything different. You're just sitting there, but all of a sudden you've got to pay more. And then as new homes are purchased, that tax basis gets reset even higher, and those folks are paying more. If you have to move and buy new homes, you could end up in a higher tax basis. So there's all these things that have happened. But basically, it wasn't even that they were raising millage rates, although I think probably some of these jurisdictions might have done it. It was just you're taking in all this more value and then getting this. And that's why you've had almost 100% increase in revenue going to local governments. And look, there's a lot of very important things that local governments do. Obviously, public safety, education, although our money follows the student and we now have universal school choice and all that, but still very important. So you have water management. There's things that are important. And we've had population growth, no question. We've had inflation. Everyone in the U.S. has had inflation. But going from 32 to 60 billion, even with inflation, population growth, and some increases, you wouldn't be close to 60 billion. You'd be about 44, 45 billion dollars, right? If it was steady. The projection under current is that by 2031, they'll be taking in 83 billion. So if that's the case, you'll have a 12 or 13 year period where you went from 32 billion being taken to now 83 billion being taken. And the question is that stiff increase necessary for Floridians to be able to receive basic services? Is there, does anybody think that could not be done at a little bit lower level? I think everybody understands it could be done at a lower level than $83 billion coming in. And that money that's being taken, that would be put to use if people could keep that money in their pockets. Imagine what they would be able to do with the economy if people who owe $2,000 a year all of a sudden had that money at their disposal. Certainly would help them with relief of everything else that's going on. But it would ultimately, I think, be very, very positive for the economy. And so that's why people say, why are we continuing to pay these property taxes at this level? What can we do to do relief? There's something that I was very sympathetic to. And this is a guy who's living in public housing, so I'm not paying property tax, right? But I understand, because I understand just how everything has become more expensive. And so this is something that can be really meaningful. And, people always saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do property tax. First of all, they'll say, who's going to pick up the trash? Property taxes don't pay for trash pickup. I mean, that's assessed differently. So they'll be saying all these things, at the end of the day, you know, some people may have legitimate concerns. I know a lot of people, they just want the relief, man. They need the relief, right? So that's like, some people just want to make sure, you know, everything goes on. But you have some people, they don't want to ever have you have any more of your own money. They just don't want to do it. They always want to put the interests of government over the interests of the taxpayer, no matter what debate we have. And so some of the stuff you're going to hear is just that. But and so when you saw these numbers, when people are saying, hey, we really need relief, you know, when you look at it, the vast majority of the revenue that is being taken in on property tax by local governments is not for homestead properties. It's for non-homestead residential. You know, someone may own 10 Airbnbs, and they pay tax on that. You may have snowbirds that live here. They're not homesteaded Floridians, and so they pay tax. And then obviously you have commercial. And so that is probably about almost 70% of the entire revenue that is coming in. And so when people were talking about how to help with property tax, look, if we were starting from scratch, because you'll hear the media say, oh, it's going to be $60 billion. You're going to need to raise taxes 60. How are you going to get $60 billion? That's if you eliminated every property tax, right? And if we were starting from scratch and we didn't have all this that's been built up, if we were just starting from scratch, I would not advocate any form of wealth or property tax. Just as a matter of first principle, I wouldn't. I think there's better ways to do it, and especially as a state that gets a lot of tourists, we have great ways to be able to offload some of that burden on people that don't even live here full time and who can't, you know, don't even vote here and all this other stuff. I mean, that's really what you'd want to do. I mean, like, look, we've just lowered taxes since I've been here. It's not like we've, you know, done other, but I mean, if you're running for office, if the people that can't vote for you are the ones that is being taxed and the people that can vote for you are not being taxed, you're probably going to do pretty good. That's just basic kind of how this all works out. So we were doing it from first principles. Just understand, like, I would support not doing it. I think that there's better ways to be able to do this. And, you know, part of it is, yeah, there's a philosophical argument about you make a transaction, you're paying all kinds of taxes and fees when you buy a property or buy a home, and then, like, you get taxed again and again and again and again. It's almost like it's an ATM. When does it ever end? Do you actually own that piece of property? That's true whether it's your homestead, primary residence, or even if you own investment properties or stuff like that. So intellectually, I think that that's something that that makes a lot of sense to me. And also just the idea that it's like, well, property taxes, you're paying for the services that you're going to get. Well, think about that. If I own a house that's $400,000 and you own a house that's $800,000, are you getting twice as much services as I'm getting? No, of course not. And so the idea that it's just basically like a fee for service, no. I mean, if you have more property, you're getting hit harder. You're paying, by definition, for services that you are not personally going to consume. I mean, somebody that's had a house for 50 years, you know, they're paying for things that they will never, ever have any involvement in. So that argument just doesn't quite work. So that's just as a matter of first principle. But at the same time, we are where we are, right? I do not believe in advocating for the creation of any new tax or any raising any existing tax. It's just not who I am. It's just not what I want to do. So when people came to me and been advocating for the property tax, I was saying, okay, well, we're going to do it within existing system. What do we have? So that's why we focused on homestead exemption for Floridians. And if you have a situation where you're a Florida resident, your homestead property is exempt from taxation, but you could have 3 houses in your neighborhood that are snowbirds. They could still be taxed. You have the Airbnb. They could still be taxed, all these other things. You can do that in a way that will make this workable across all these different things. Not every local government's going to like it. I get it, because why would they? I mean, like, they would rather have no limitations, right? I get that. But given the numbers, it's doable with doing it. So we're going to focus on homestead exemption for Floridians, understanding that you are going to have Canadians. Honestly, some of these rich people that come from Brazil, they'll buy this big house in like Coconut Grove in South Florida. I don't care if they get taxed. I don't want to. Why would I care about giving them a tax cut? I want to help Floridians with that. So there's going to be a lot of tax base here that would not even be affected by no tax on homestead. The other thing I think that we can do is you have all that other revenue. So you have that 70% of the revenue that's not even affected by a homestead exemption. That should only be allowed to be used for public safety, police, fire, education, and the very core things that we all claim. Because what happens is they'll say if you give a tax relief, then, we're not going to have any public safety, but then they won't talk about the things that money shouldn't be spent on. Well, let's just all agree that if you're taxing this money, that it should go to those things that we all agree with. And if you have a constitutional protection for that, it's almost a guarantee that those services are going to be there. I think that would be very, very good. Now, it does mean you're going to have less room for extraneous expenses, but I think we all see that, would you rather have the homestead relief and not have extraneous, or would you rather just have the extraneous and keep paying tax? I think most people would rather have that. The other thing that is, I think, going to be necessary to do is you don't want to create an incentive where people can just, this is on the ballot in November, say it passes, which is not easy to do, but say it does. I don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry from out of state moving in, rushing to buy a home here because they get a tax benefit. And the reason is because Floridians have been paying taxes. And so I think if you move here after this is enacted, you got to pay tax for a certain period of time before you qualify for this. I think that that's fair. I think that makes sense. I think it reduces some of the disincentives. I mean, if we're trying to make things more affordable for people, you wouldn't want to do anything that's going to artificially make housing less attainable for people. So I think it makes a lot of sense. You already have to qualify for homestead to a certain extent. There's certain things we have benefits for Florida residents, like in-state tuition. You can't just show up on campus and claim you're an in-state resident all of a sudden. It doesn't work that way. There's a process where someone would have to establish. So I think we could do the same thing here is, okay, you move from New York after this passes, okay, here's what you have to do until you're qualified for it. But I don't think it's fair to treat somebody who transplants in after this reform the same as somebody in Florida who's been asking for this relief now for a long time. And I think most Floridians support that. But notice what that would do. That means, that tax base is still going to be there for these local governments as people, people are going to continue to want to move to Florida. And I've said for many years, I'm not asking anybody to do it. I think we've had a lot. I think we've probably had too much. But it's not something that I can control as governor because it's a free country and Americans can move to whatever state they want to move to. And so if you want to pick up and move from Florida to go to, LA, you can do that. They can't stop you. I can't stop you, and vice versa for all this other stuff. And so, but I do imagine you're going to continue to see Florida be positive. And so they'll come in, that's part of your tax base, and they'll have to pay. I don't even know. I mean, I do know, but there'll be a period of time, and we'll talk about that at the appropriate time. So you'll have that. The other thing, though, I think would be important is make sure that a local government doesn't try to whack small business. So commercial, non-residential, and non-homestead residential, that's a lot of money there. That's probably, I don't know, $40-some billion, which is a lot more than what they had 7 years ago. But what you don't want is them to try to get back to where they're at by increasing valuations on the businesses. And so I think you got to have a limitation on that to protect, particularly our small businesses, so that they can't increase the value and then tax more on that. I think that's an important part of having a strong economy and that taxpayer. So there'd be some people like, oh man, I want the homestead. I own this, I own a tire store and I don't want them to be doing that. No, we'll make sure that doesn't happen. I don't think that would be fair, and it won't. And then the other thing I think, because again, I've said from the beginning, we're not creating any taxes and we're not raising any taxes, certainly at the state level. I don't think you need to at the local either. But I also know we have a big surplus at the state level. The Florida legislature voted last year to put on the ballot a provision that's going to fail. It has no chance of passing. I mean, it was not worded well, and it's not going to. It's not good policy. Anyways, they did it, and I've ribbed a lot of some of these senators about Duke, because like a lot of them realize it was flawed. But basically, you know, we've maxed out our rainy day fund. We've quadrupled it since I've been governor. They wanted to create like a separate rainy day and just park billions of dollars in there and do nothing with it, even above and beyond the rainy day fund. I think that's a mistake, because, yeah, you want to run surplus, you want to have rainy day, but you go beyond that, that means you're being overtaxed. Why would you want to just husband this money away? It makes no sense. So that money that's already been voted to be husbanded away, you know, you can use that as a temporary fund. Current trajectory in terms of local spending, because I don't think that's sustainable to go from $32 billion in 2019 to end up at $83 billion at the beginning of next decade. Would you rather that be like $60 billion at the beginning of next decade, and you pocket that remaining $23 billion as a homeowner, or would you rather that just go there? So don't let anyone tell you that like you can't do this. And if you say you can't, then that means, did we not have services in 2019 when they were taking in $32 billion a year? I mean, I don't remember anyone telling me there weren't services during that. Of course there were. Of course there were. And so fine, build in some increases because of the overall economic landscape and the population and the demographic, fine. But that, under no circumstances will that get you to 60. So I think that we got to return that to the people. And I think ultimately a lot of these local jurisdictions will benefit, because I think more money in people's pocket is more money that's going to be used in the economy. And ultimately, I think it will help expand our economic base. So that's the 30,000-foot view of, I think, what we need to do. And I'm excited to be able to finally, you know, start to get this thing across the finish line, you know, once this budget is done, and hopefully they'll be able to do that soon. I think their plan, they wanted to come to an agreement. Now, you know, these members probably have no idea either what's going on. I mean, it's kind of just like a little cabal of people that kind of like decided, and it's almost like, you know, is there like white smoke coming out of, you know, it's just, and so do we have a budget? So they'll be doing that, but they were going to probably finish it. They wanted to finish it soon. It takes time to print. They got to leave it on the desk. We have holiday weekend, and then going to be done this week. but maybe after Memorial Day, they'd be able to come and vote on it. If they don't have a budget today or tomorrow, then they're probably not going to be able to meet that. So anyways, we're watching all this and hoping for the best. But just understand, we obviously know that what the next item on the agenda is after that job is done. So I would just encourage everybody that's a part of that in the legislative, get it done, show how it's done, show how Florida gets it done. We have a great track record. I don't think you want to fritter that away now over really, I think, pretty minor disagreements. Okay, so I've said my piece on this. I'm going to kick it over to some of the panelists here, and they'll say their piece on whatever they want. I told them let her rip, and just hope you don't embarrass me too bad, but that's okay. All right, so we'll start with Megan, and we'll just go down the line here.
All right, thank you, Governor. Well, there's two things that are certain in life. Everyone says this, right? It's taxes and death, and people are tired of being taxed to death. That's been very apparent. I've heard that from all individuals all over the place. I'm going to tell you a real story about a friend of mine who fled a northern blue state, came here to Florida. Her tax bill from purchasing a home went from $3,900 to $8,400. That's a huge, substantial increase in taxes for her family that they weren't planning on paying. And so, when we look at this, I think most residents, I've heard from people everywhere that are supporting the idea of how can we lower our tax bill. And if we can do something on our part, we absolutely want to make sure that we join the governor on this and say, yes, we absolutely support this. It really boils down to wants versus needs, right? We have a lot of things that government has encumbered at this point, but is this a want or is this a need? And so when it looks at public education, safety, our roads to be safe, those are all things I think we all agree that we want and we need. But there's some other stuff, though, that maybe we could possibly reduce and get to the point where we're looking at the government serving for a need rather than just a want basis. But I thank you for the bold initiative. Florida is a free state for a good reason. It's your leadership that's obviously brought all these people to Florida, which we're grateful for. And we want to make sure that we're good stewards of the tax dollars and we're listening to the constituents, because I've heard from people all over the place, and very few ever say, oh, I would love to have higher taxes. So most of them are all in support of this measure, and they want to hear how we can get it done. So we're looking forward to seeing how this comes about, and I know it'll be good for our residents in Florida. So thank you, Governor.
Yeah, thank you. And, we're at the state level, we're not doing property tax, so that's part of the reason this has to be a ballot measure, is because if it was just something that was done by the state, we could just work with the legislature and we could do. It's not the way the Florida Constitution is laid out. But at the state level, we obviously have no income tax, and our sales tax exempts medications, groceries, baby items. So people, because the knock on a consumption tax is, people that are lower income, but on the necessities, you're basically exempt from that. So if someone that's wealthy goes and buys a new car for $150,000 or buys a big boat for millions of dollars, they're paying pretty significant sales tax on that because the purchase price is high. Whereas on the more mundane items that are necessary for everyday use, those are exempt by and large in the state of Florida. Now, it's interesting, California has the highest income tax in the entire country amongst all 50 states, but they also have the highest sales tax. So their sales tax is significantly higher than Florida's, with a very stiff income tax, and now they're trying to adopt a wealth tax. And I think what that's showing is all they're trying to do with that is they're trying to feed it to the special interests, and it's taking and it's giving, basically paying off their constituencies, and that's where this ultimately goes unless you have really good constitutional restraints on government's ability to tax you. But we're doing that this way because we have done it right at the state level. We're proud of that. We're considered a very low tax state in terms of our state policy. If you say total taxes, we're still lower than most, and we're probably in the top 10, but we are not number one simply because of property tax. That is the reason why we're not number one in terms of taxpayers. That's local. It is what it is. But doing this would really vault us because ultimately, I'm governor. I work with the people you elect to the legislature to do fiscal policy that affects the state. And I can sit there and tell you we're the lowest tax state, all this other stuff. And, that may be true just from state policy. But if you're a Florida resident, when you say I'm paying taxes, like, yeah, you may appreciate that the state government is a lean, mean fighting machine and isn't taxing you, but if you're paying tax, you're paying tax, right? You may be paying to a different entity. So if you ask it, are you overtaxed? You're not going to say, well, no, I'm undertaxed because the state's so good, even though I'm being overtaxed on property. No, you're just going to say I'm paying too much in taxes. And so this is that. But the fact that people would move in here and have higher property tax, that is just a function of the valuations have gone up and these things. But I think what it says is, like, now is the time to change, that. And we have a chance to get it done. Wayne?
Yes, sir. So first of all, I want to thank our Space Coast Realtor Association for jumping through hoops to make this happen for us. I reached out for them yesterday, and they were more than accommodating. Secondly, Governor, thank you for allowing me to sit with you and to stand by your side. You touched on a couple things that immediately caught my attention. One, what you're paying when you go through the drive-through at McDonald's. I think
the problem is I'll tell you, McDonald's coming up with these Happy Meals and was the smartest thing ever, because we finish a game, the kids want it because they want the toy and they want this. And so, I'm staring down the barrel. The most recent one, I think it ended, was Huntrix meals. So these Huntrix meals are nuggets, fries, and a drink, and then like some of the stuff they put in there. And I've got one who will eat most or all the nuggets and all the fries, my son. I've got my oldest daughter will eat some of the nuggets and some of the fries. And then I've got my youngest daughter that will eat very little of any of the fries or any of the nuggets. She just wants the toys. And so I tell her, I say, why do I have to get you one? Are you going to eat? Oh, I'm going to eat. And she doesn't eat. But 3 of those meals, it's almost $40 now for 3 of those Huntrix meals. And, so it's just, it is what it is. That was a lot different. I mean, you used to be able to go, like when I was a kid, you get different things for 99 cents and you would just be able to, you could feed, 3 or 4 people for like $10, like not anymore.
I think my problem is I eat all the nuggets and fries. Here and there, so. The second thing, Governor, is I always agree with you. I am always proud to stand by your side, except for you said that you can't help that these people are moving to Florida. Governor, you're the reason these people are moving to Florida. Your leadership has changed the game, and you leave a very high bar. And so as everybody knows, I'm very focused on the public safety side of things, and the governor spoke about the property taxes that go towards that and keeping everybody safe and how those things will work. So, Megan used the term wants and needs. And the way I always explain that when we're putting our budget together is we have our needs and we have our wants. And the way I look at them differently is I need a watch. I want a Rolex. And so we have to be good shepherds of the taxpayers' dollars. Obviously, government's number one responsibility is to keep its citizens safe. So, making sure that we're taking care of our public safety, making sure we're taking care of our education. Those are things that are going to be paramount as this thought process takes place and how we keep the focus on that. I know we got a long way to go in this process. And then, of course, sending it out to the voters. But the one thing that I know is one of the things that draws people to the state of Florida, one of the things that draws them even to Brevard County, is the fact that they know they're going to be safe here. And we have to keep our focus on keeping them safe. We're very blessed. We have a great partnership here in Brevard County with our county commission, our city commissions, our school board, all across the thing. We all work together for the same mission. But I'm a homeowner too, and when you're looking at the increases, the things that the governor talked about, those are staring everybody in the face as we go with this. So, Governor, I applaud your initiative. I applaud your efforts on this, and peeling back the layers of this and looking at it and seeing what is the best path forward, so that we keep all the great stuff that Florida and our counties have, but we're also able to show our citizens, those that live here year-round, those that are paying those taxes, how much we appreciate them too.
Well, I want to thank Wayne. He's been a tremendous sheriff. I did that because, well, first of all, if Wayne was the only one I wouldn't have to do it because he would have done it, right? He would have been wanting to do it because he understands how the people in Brevard County voted in 24. He understood what they wanted to see, and he would have done it. And we have other sheriffs that would have done it too, but not all police, not all mayors, all this stuff. And so you really had to do that to be able to go. But I would say Brevard certainly has been one of the top in this effort, which is very important. And, you hear different things like, they asked us to help with detention because you can't just find an illegal and send him immediately. You literally go through this process, which I think is too cumbersome, but it is what it is. And so, we opened up the facility down in the Everglades, and we've now had 22,000 illegal aliens that were sent there by DHS. We staged, we kept until DHS deported them, but that's 22,000 illegal aliens that would have been back on the streets in the state of Florida had we not stepped up to fill that role. Do you think lives were saved as a result of that? 100% lives were saved as a result of that. So these are, I think, really significant things. The state of Florida has led. And yes, I'm sometimes the face of it because as governor, I'll call for this and I sign the bills and we have good policy. But I'll tell you, if you have bad policy, then people like Wayne aren't going to have a chance to do well. That is true. But having good policy, that's not enough if you don't have people like Wayne who are stepping up with his deputies and getting the job done day in, day out. And, we have the best law enforcement in the country in Florida.
Governor Ron DeSantis continuing to speak right now in Melbourne. Meanwhile, let me get you to Volusia County, where a hearing is getting underway, a plea hearing and sentencing hearing for Eduardo Labrada Machado. He is the suspect in the shooting of an off-duty Edgewater police officer last year. This had been characterized as an ambush or an assassination even by the Volusia County Sheriff when this happened at a gas station. The suspect expected to enter a plea and be sentenced. Inside this packed courtroom, you see a number of police officers from agencies all across the region. Let's go ahead and listen in as this hearing gets underway.
The defense has an interpreter who needs to be sworn in first.
All right, Madam Clerk, if you will please swear the interpreter. Hold on, we have two, so we're going to let her get situated. All right, you may proceed.
Do you solemnly swear or that you will well and truthfully interpret English, Spanish, and English to Russian act and use your to the best of your ability, and that you do so have the ability, so help you God?
I do. Whenever somebody else certified Spanish interpreter?
Yes, I do. For the record, good afternoon. Inez Soto, state certified interpreter.
All right, thank you.
And Judge, for the court's consideration today, through plea negotiations, the state waiving the death penalty in these proceedings, and the defendant agreeing to a life sentence without the possibility of parole. With the first, technically, it has to be under 1020 life, the first 25 years, a day-for-day sentence. But of course, a life sentence is a mandatory sentence without the possibility of release from the Department of Corrections.
All right. And Mr. Smith, do you have a plea form that you have reviewed with Mr. Machado?
I do, Judge. I do have a plea form both in English and in Spanish that I had my client sign. I also, when I talk over legal terms with my client, I would typically have a Spanish interpreter out there, and that's why I would request a Spanish interpreter for the proceedings today. I know in the past we haven't had them, but I wanted to make sure everything was fully understood today.
Okay. All right. Are you ready to proceed with the plea at this time?
We are.
Mr. Machado, if I can have you come up to the podium, please. And, sir, if you would raise your right hand to be sworn. All right, Mr. Machado, you are before the court. You have previously been before the court without an interpreter, but to ensure that there are no questions about what occurs here today. Make sure if you have anything that needs to be clarified by the court repeating the question or rephrasing, I want you to make sure you let me know that so we have a clear understanding of what is happening. State your name.
Eduardo Felipe Labrada Machado.
And how old are you, sir?
25.
How far did you go in school?
High school.
And what is your primary language?
Español.
Do you also understand English?
Sí.
Yes. And what is the highest grade you completed, sir?
12.
I have two plea forms before me. One is written in Spanish and one is written in English. Did you have an opportunity to read both of these plea forms before you signed them?
Yo lo leí.
I read them. Did you have the opportunity to review them carefully with Mr. Smith and your other or your other counsel before you signed them, sir?
Sí.
Yes.
Just to make it clear, myself and Ms. Davidson and Ms. Altez all went out to meet with Mr. Labrada Machado, not last Friday, the Friday before, with an interpreter, and he read over the Spanish plea form himself. And then I asked him if he had any questions at the end, and we answered any questions he had. He did not read the English, just the Spanish.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Machado, do you understand all those very important rights you're waiving by changing your plea here this afternoon?
Sí.
Yes. And you understand this is a negotiated sentence since the state is waiving the death penalty. The mandatory sentence that would be imposed for first-degree murder is a life sentence. In this case, it is subject to the 1020 life provision, but as a practical matter, it is a life sentence without parole. Do you understand that, sir?
Sí.
Yes. And other than that negotiated sentence, has anyone offered or promised you anything in exchange for your plea?
No.
Are you under the influence of alcohol or substances?
No.
Do you take any medication or suffer from any conditions that affects your understanding of what we're here doing today?
Sí.
Yes. All right, so are you currently taking some medication?
No. Oh, sorry. Yes.
All right. Does that medication affect your understanding of what's happening here today in the courtroom?
No.
No. Tell me what we're here doing.
Bueno, el día de hoy me están dando la primera oferta de la sentencia.
Well, today I'm being given the first offer, the sentence.
And in order to receive that life sentence, what are you doing?
No lo disputo.
No contest.
All right. And do you understand if you are not a U.S. citizen, you would be deported?
Sí.
Yes. Keeping that in mind, sir, you are here before the court charged with first-degree murder. As to that charge, how do you plead?
No lo disputo.
No contest.
Are you entering that plea of no contest because you believe it's in your best interest to do so?
Sí.
Yes.
Has anyone forced or threatened you to do that?
No.
No.
Factual basis.
If we stipulate to a factual basis for the purpose of this plea.
The court does find there are facts sufficient in the affidavits in the court file to support the entry of the plea. Mr. Machado is entering this plea freely and voluntarily without coercion after consultation with his counsel. And I do find specifically that he understands what he's doing. He is not under the influence of any medication that he does take, such that he does not understand the consequence of entering the plea or accepting this negotiated sentence. Are we ready to proceed to sentencing at this time?
State's ready, yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Machado, you may have a seat, sir. And Mr. Baird.
I did have a photo, Judge, to publish. Thank you, Judge. The state has 6 witnesses for the court's consideration to hear from this afternoon. The first witness the state would call on, is the court okay with them testifying from the witness stand?
From the witness stand.
Okay. The first witness the state would call to make a statement would be Sergeant Gabbery from the Edgewater Police Department.
I do.
You may proceed.
Sir, if you could just introduce yourself to the court and spell your last name for our digital court reporting system.
My name is Scott Gaboury, Gaboury.
And fairly self-explanatory, but where do you work?
With the Edgewater Police Department.
And did you know David?
I did.
Have you prepared a statement to read to the court today?
I have.
You may go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Your Honor, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I had the privilege of serving alongside David Jewell as his patrol sergeant. To many people in the community, he was Officer Jewell, but to us on the shift, he was simply Jewell, the light of our squad. Every shift has its own personality, and Jewell was the person who we could count on to make ours better. No matter what kind of call we're dealing with, no matter how long the shift was, he can make our group laugh. He was a guy who made difficult shifts manageable simply because he was there. The last shift I worked with Jewell is something I'll never forget. We had a pizza party during shift where we joked about our shift, the agency, and our personal lives. We sat and enjoyed the company. We were having fun that day. At the end of shift, we talked about our plans for the 2 days off and looking forward to getting back to work on that following Wednesday. We talked about our circle. That's what we called our shift, the people we trusted, the people we count on, the people we know will show up when things get hard. Our circle became a family. We'd spend holidays on shift together, miss time with our families, and rely on each other in moments where things got tough. Jewell was a key part of that circle. Because of the imaginal, heinous, cold act committed by the defendant, whose name I'll never speak, that circle was permanently broken. What was taken was not only a husband, a father, a family member, but a colleague and someone I called a friend. Something was taken from this agency. Something was taken from our shift. There's now a chair that stays empty, a voice that's missing from the radio, a laugh that no longer breaks the tension during difficult shifts. No longer will we be surprised to find out his wife was on the phone while we talked to him for minutes about nonsense. All while his wife was sitting there quietly on the phone, and Jewel never told us until she finally would say hello. That happened frequently. People often talk about the loss of an officer, talk about it in terms of statistics, headlines, or ceremonies. But what stays with those of us left behind are small things. The silence where his jokes used to be, the moments where we still expect him to walk through the door. The realization that future memories, future laughs, future conversations were stolen from all of us. The realization our colleague, and more important, our friend, is not reporting for shift. Jewel chose a profession where he served others, knowing the risk that came with wearing the badge. He stood for something bigger than himself. He represented kindness, service, loyalty, and strength. We know the risk while on duty, but don't think about it much as while we're getting a soda and a hot dog at a store that we visit frequently. Sadly, Jewel was targeted for what he was. The defendant took a life, but he also caused lasting damage to an entire family of people who loved and respected him. An agency and a shift that thought of him as a brother. That impact does not end today. It will continue every single day for those who knew Jewel and for those who still carry his memory and spirit into every shift. Jewel mattered to us. Jewel was loved by us. Jewel was valued by us. Jewel was a light of our circle. And Jewel will never be forgotten. Not now, not ever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Next witness.
And you're on a safe call, Chief Geiger from the Edgewater Police Department.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Good afternoon. Would you please introduce yourself to the court and spell your last name for our court reporting system?
Yes, sir. My name is Charles Geiger. That's Geiger. I'm the Chief of Police for the Edgewater Police Department.
And you prepared a statement to read today to the court?
Yes, sir.
Let me go ahead, sir.
Your Honor, thank you for this opportunity. What is the measure of a police officer? Is it the badge, the uniform, the number of years served, the calls answered, the arrests made, or the sacrifices? For Officer David Jewell, the measure of a police officer was much greater than any of those things, because David was not defined by the badge alone. He was defined by the way he wore it, by the way he served, by the way he treated people, by the way he carried himself in moments when others needed calm, compassion, strength, and courage. David was a servant in the truest sense of the word. He would do anything for anyone, not because it was expected of him, not because he wanted recognition. This was simply who David was. If someone needed help, David helped. If someone needed strength, David gave them strength. If someone needed a reason to smile, David found a way to bring their smile to life. His presence was mountainous. He had a way of filling a room without ever trying to be the center of it. His laugh could cut through the hardest day. His humor could bring light into moments that felt dark. In a profession where people often carry more than they show, David had the rare ability to remind us, even in difficult places, there can still be joy, humanity, and hope. And now, his absence is immeasurable. There is not a day that goes by in the Edgewater Police Department that David is not remembered. His name is spoken, his laugh is remembered, his absence is felt in briefings, in hallways, on calls, and in the quiet moments when everyone knows something is missing. But when we remember David, we must also remember why. We remember him not simply because of how he died, but because of how he lived. We remember him because he served with purpose. We remember him because he loved his wife Elizabeth more than words can describe. We remember him because he was a father to Bobby in a way most men can only hope. We remember him because his family lost someone irreplaceable, and because our agency lost not just an officer, but part of its heart. To Elizabeth, Bobby, and the entire Jewell family, nothing said in this courtroom can restore what was taken from you. But please know this, David is not carried by you alone. We carry him with you. His department carries him, the community carries him, and as long as Edgewater police officers wear this uniform, David's name, legacy, and example will remain part of who we are. To the court, thank you for allowing David's life, his service, and his family's loss to be seen and heard. To the state attorney's office and everyone who carried the burden of this case, thank you for your professionalism, your resolve, and your commitment to accountability. I also want to extend my sincere gratitude to the Volusia Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Mike Chitwood. In our darkest hours, you stood beside the Jewell family, the Edgewater Police Department, and this community. That support will never be forgotten. To the defendant.
Judge, I was objecting at this point. The purpose is to talk about Mr. Jewell and his loss, not to direct things towards my client or the director.
Chief, I'm just going to ask you direct your comments to the court, please, for consideration for sentencing.
Your Honor, may the interpreters also request to be a little bit of a slower pace for the purposes of interpreting?
Yes, and if you could slow down just a little bit for the interpreter, thank you, sir.
He is still strengthening a family, a police department, and a community. He is still teaching us service. He is reminding us what we love, duty, and courage look like. One day beyond this, the courtroom, and beyond the sentence, I will remit that. Bobby, I want you to hear this from me, from the police department, and from every person who loved your dad. Your father was a great man. Not just a great police officer, he loved you deeply. He was proud to be your father, and while no one can ever replace him, you will never have to wonder whether his life mattered. It mattered to your family, it mattered to this agency, it mattered to this city, and it will continue to matter for the rest of our lives. So what is the measure of a police officer? It's not found only in the badge, the uniform, the calls, or even the final sacrifice. It's found in the lives he changed, the family he loved, the son who carries his name forward, the officers who still follow his example, and the legacy that no sentence, no prison wall, no act of violence, and no evil on this earth can ever erase. That is the measure of Officer David Jewell. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
State of Office, Kristen Jewell.
Trying to get your picture back, and for some reason that's not happening.
What is this?
Just all right, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your entire names?
Kristen Brianne Altizer.
Thank you, Ms. Altizer. Can you spell the last name?
Yes, it's Altizer.
And Ms. Altizer, how are you related to David?
He's my brother-in-law.
Have you prepared a statement to read to the court today?
Yes, I have.
You can go ahead, Ms.
Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to speak and the opportunity to say what I feel needs to be said to aid in the healing of a broken heart. I hadn't planned on addressing the issue with recent reports, but I feel it necessary to stop false information from being reported. I can say with 100% confidence that there was never a confrontation or a negative interaction between my brother-in-law and the defendant. D, as he'll be referred to for the rest of my statement, shared every moment of his life with us. Had there been such an incident, I assure you, he would have insisted that my father did not stop there every day, and he himself would not have conducted business there, let alone doing so unarmed. Safety of his family and ensuring he returned home to my sister were on the top of his priority list. He and my dad were daily customers of that store, nothing less, nothing more. September 15th, 2025 started out with an early morning text from Dee, a picture of my dad who had fallen and gotten hurt. Dee got him back up to bed and thought we should take him to the ER. So a few hours later we did. Dee and my sister got him settled and I joined them there. A little while later, the Jules went home to rest while I stayed with my dad. He was fine from the fall, but they offered to admit him and he had declined. He wanted Dee to come and get him. I offered to drive him home, but he wanted Dee. And Dee came, like he always did. We loaded my dad in the truck and said our I love yous, not ever imagining that it would be our last. He circled around until I got into my car, always making sure I was safe, and then he waved with a huge smile and drove away, the last time I'd ever seen him. A while later, I got a text from my sister saying that there was a shooting at the Circle K, that Dee and Pop were there and he wasn't answering his phone. He never missed a call from my sister, ever. We thought that he must be helping. We heard someone was deceased. He must be helping. There must have been someone robbing the store and he stopped them. Then our worst nightmare became reality. It was him. He had been killed. We still thought he must have been trying to help in some way because that's who he was to his core, a helper. It would make sense that he would take a bullet to save someone else. But as we all know, that wasn't the case. He was unarmed. He had his back turned, obviously comfortable and unaware, being in a familiar setting that was so routine. He was unsuspecting and never had a chance. A man who quite literally spent his entire life serving, rescuing, and protecting others was stolen from us by a coward who made sure there was only one outcome of his actions. Dee would have taken a bullet for you had your life been in danger, and instead you took his. On paper, Dee was my brother-in-law, but he was much more. He was my brother and my best friend. He loved my sister with his whole heart. He was a father who loved his son and my kids. We shared our lives completely. These three kids here today belong just as much to their biological parents as they do their aunt and uncle. Our family shared dreams, goals, and plans. Accomplishments were celebrated together, heartache healed together, memories made together, and lessons learned together. Your actions shattered the foundation of our life and our family. Family dinner is a common and sacred occurrence at my house, and since September, his chair at my table is sat empty. I can't bring myself to cook his favorite foods. He wasn't there for his birthday, which was 2 weeks after his death. He wasn't there for Thanksgiving or Christmas, not for Easter or my son's first t-ball game, not for his 13th wedding anniversary to my sister. He wasn't there for her birthday, not for my son's 6th birthday, not for the baptism of my nephew or his award ceremony, not to support my sister when our dad passed away. He won't be in the stands when my daughter graduates in a week and a half, and he wasn't there today for kindergarten awards. He won't be there for my nephew's first day of senior year or his graduation or all the big moments to come in his life. All of these things he would have never missed, even if it meant he was to show up in uniform. There will be no more lights and sirens for my little boy on the way to school to say, "Have a good day, and I'm right here if you need me." There's no more comfort and reassuring knowing that.
Hearing a victim impact statement right now from the sister-in-law of David Jewell, talking about the impact on the family from their loss. Again, a no contest plea from the suspect. This sentencing hearing continuing. We're going to take a break here on Fox Local and YouTube. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Welcome in our TV audience and keep listening.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you. Welcome into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon live on Fox Local and on Fox 35 TV. And if you're just joining us here on TV, let me get you inside this Volusia County courtroom where we are hearing victim impact statements right now from those who knew and loved David Jewell, the Edgewater police officer who was shot and killed at a gas station last year. The suspect in this case, Eduardo Labrado Machado, as you see him sitting there, has just a few minutes ago entered a no contest plea. In exchange for that, prosecutors say they are waiving the death penalty, and instead the suspect expected to be sentenced to a life sentence without parole. You saw Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood sitting inside the gallery of this courtroom right now. You are also seeing a number of other police officers and law enforcement. There's Sheriff Chitwood, who has talked about this case. We we see a number of police officers in the stands there, including from a variety of different law enforcement agencies. The charge the suspect was facing, first-degree murder, and again, getting the death penalty will be waived. Instead, he'll be sentenced to life in prison without parole as part of this plea deal. This is the sister-in-law of David Jewell, who is speaking right now, saying that just a few minutes ago, essentially saying to the suspect, Officer Jewell is someone who would have taken a bullet for you if you were in danger, but instead you took his life. We've also heard from a couple of other police officers who worked with Officer Jewell. Let's go ahead and listen back in as we continue to hear from loved ones talking about the impact of their loss.
Read their statements and are unafraid to show evil what a legacy of love left behind looks like. There is no power. Dee lived a life of service, love, and meaning that is already outliving him and will continue for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Watch your step.
Thank you.
Judge, next I have Robert Jewell and Chief Geiger off the podium right now.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Watch your step as you roll.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Take your time whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm ready.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Could you please state your entire name?
Robert Richard Jewell.
And how did you know Dave?
He was my father.
Have you prepared a statement that you'd like to read to the court today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I've come to talk about the power of God over all of us and why I have faith that my Father is in heaven watching over us all now. Blessed are the peacemakers. Now I would like to express my faith in what God holds for the future. These words are of the Bible, of the punishment of murder. For though God is a God of love and mercy, He is a God of rules and order. I would like to take us to Romans chapter 13. Let every soul subject to be the governing authorities, where there is no authority except from God. The authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore you must be subject, not only because of the wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for they are God's ministers, attending continually to this very thing. Render therefore to all due taxes, to whom taxes are due. Customs to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing so, you will heap coals of fire on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Now take us to Revelations chapter 21, verses 6 through 8. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to him who thirsts. He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. I hope that all here know that this has taken a great deal of strength to come up here today. God has a plan for all of us, and I know that whether we live short lives or long lives, there's meaning behind it. I thank you all for the time you have given me this day to speak my piece, and may God bless all those here today.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
State of Miss Madeline Hannah.
I do.
All set? Yes. Good afternoon, ma'am. Could you please state your entire name
Madeline Elizabeth Hannah.
and how do you spell your last name?
Hannah.
And how did you know David?
He was my uncle.
Have you prepared a statement to read to the court today?
Yes, I have.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I could start this in a million ways. Tell a million stories and share so many memories about my D, trying to get the point across how much he meant to me. He wasn't just my uncle, wasn't just my sissy's husband, no. He was the man who stepped up every single time I needed him. I needed a ride home from school, he was there. My first homecoming, he stayed in the area and just in case he needed to pick his princess up. My D was my entire world. He was what every man should be. He was an amazing husband, an amazing father, and just an amazing person overall. And that man was ripped from all of us. 2 days before his death, I was having dinner with him. We spent 2 hours together talking, not having a clue this would be the last I love you that we shared. Not having a clue the next Monday afternoon would be the day that flipped my entire world onto its head. The day before we went to dinner, he called me out of the blue. He told me that he was so proud of the woman I was becoming. So proud that he got to call me and Bobby and my little brother his kids. Because we showed up and made him proud of us in so many ways. And that was the kind of man that D was. I wasn't just his niece, I was his princess. I was his kid. He loved me like I was his own. We talked about the hard things and he taught me the hard lessons, but when it counted, he was there every time I needed him. I remember when he had to call his sergeant because I needed a ride home from school. He didn't hesitate to come and get me. I loved my D. He was my everything, my biggest role model, the one man I looked up to more than anybody, and you took him from me. You took the one thing that I needed so badly. Every day I wish I could just hear him call me his princess one more time. Hear that loud laugh that was so contagious. Feel his strong hug that was like him squeezing all of his love into me in one single action. I'd even give anything to see that look that he'd give me when I was being difficult. All of that was taken away from me so carelessly without even thinking about the life being ripped from us. He died within walking distance of his house, and why? If he wasn't the man that he was, if he hadn't have gotten my grandfather from the hospital that day, if he hadn't have done him a favor and bought drinks for him like he always did, then he would have been standing here today, showing up for my brother's 6th birthday, helping with decorations and running the operation. He would have gotten to watch me walk across the stage in a week. He would have gotten to see me get married and walk down the aisle. But now, I don't get to see his proud, smiling face when I finally get to become the woman that he wanted me to be. I don't get to hear him say that he's proud of me. I don't get to hear him say I love you or get to call him when things get hard. And all because it was decided that the most evil thing a person could possibly do was done. To take something that meant so much to so many people. Actions that left my cousin without a father, my aunt without a husband, me without the man who showed up every day without question, his officers without the man who would back them up without thinking. Because now, I won't have him there when I turn 18. I don't get to have him at Christmas or complaining about how much he ate at Thanksgiving, and each round fired will leave holes in me that nothing will ever fill.
Emotional testimony inside this courtroom as the plea and sentencing hearing continues. For Eduardo Machado, who you see sitting at the defendant's table.
The state call Ms. Elizabeth Jewell, and may she be sheet dagger.
Yes.
We've heard from family members. We heard a few moments ago from the son.
Yes, ma'am.
Now Elizabeth Jewell, it appears, getting ready to testify.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am. Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Elizabeth Jewell.
Could you spell your last name?
Jewell.
How did you know David?
I am his widow.
Have you prepared a statement to read to the court today?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
5,921. That's the number of mornings I was blessed to wake up next to the love of my life. 245. That's the number of mornings I've woken up alone, still reaching for my husband beside me, before I'm forced back into the reality that he's no longer here. A reality that still feels very foreign to me. Most people knew him as a police officer, stoic, professional, dependable. I knew him as a husband, a father, and a friend. Funny, generous, thoughtful, kind, and incredibly sweet. He loved his job, but he loved his family more. When my husband loved, he did so fully. Never had to question where you stood. When I was diagnosed with a disabling illness just 1 year into our marriage, I learned exactly how steady and unwavering his love truly was. He became my fiercest advocate, my caregiver, and my constant source of strength. When MS forced me out of my career, he carried the weight of our family without hesitation. In nearly 13 years of marriage, he never faltered, he never complained. He never made me feel like a burden. Instead, he made me feel safe, supported, and loved. And he was my constant. That's who my husband was, patient, selfless, and devoted. We had a once-in-a-lifetime love, the kind most people spend their lives looking for. Because of these actions, that life was stolen. I did not just lose my husband, I lost my best friend, my partner, my security, and my future. I'm now a widow at 38 years old, a widow of a man who lived with a purpose, who made a difference in people's lives every day, and took pride in doing so. That goodness was taken from this world when he was murdered. There was a choice made, a deliberate decision to take a life that was not one to take. A man who was loved, respected, and deeply needed. A man who made this world better just by being in it. And because of that choice, it changed countless lives forever. What was done was not strength, it was not power, it was the destruction of something good by someone who chose to do egregious harm for no reason. And that is what they will be remembered for, if they're remembered at all. From this point forward, you don't get to exist in this world. Your life is meaningless and will remain so until your final breath. Your Honor, there is no sentence that can bring my husband back. There is no punishment that can restore the life we built or the future that was taken from us. But there must be accountability that reflects the permanence of this loss, not just because of what was taken from me, but because of the value of the life that was taken. My husband's life mattered. It was meaningful. It was honorable. It was so full of love. Despite the way it ended, that's how he will be remembered. And that's what I will carry forward in his absence every single day for the rest of my life. Though there is one person responsible for the cowardly action and one unforgivable moment, David Jewell, forever EP 698, will be remembered for a lifetime of purpose, dedication, and love, and that you can never take. And that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Emotional statement there being read in court. We're going to step aside and take a quick break right now here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. We are seeing a sentencing right now. Eduardo Machado being sentenced after entering the no contest plea. He is going to be adjudicated as guilty on the first-degree murder charge, life sentence without parole. Let's go ahead and listen back in.
We are adjourned.
Court hearing coming to an end. You see Machado being fingerprinted and booked right now. He's been held in the Volusia County Jail, will spend the rest of his life, though, in prison. We listened to the emotional testimony and the statements that were coming in from several of those who worked with David Jewell, several of those who loved David Jewell, family members, including the widow. Again, this is a courtroom. You can see everyone standing right now. A little bit difficult to see as Machado is taken back into custody, but it is a room that is full of law enforcement officers, police, deputies from a number of different agencies around the region coming out today to show their support for the family members. And again, we heard from several of them speaking, but the bottom line, a life sentence without parole. This was a case that prosecutors could have sought the death penalty over. As part of that plea negotiation, they decided to waive the death penalty in that. Well, it is time now for our Tampa Connection, where we take a look at some of the big stories in the Bay Area on this Monday afternoon. Going to bring in Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, who joins us live now. And Nancy, we appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live.
Thanks for having me, Garrett. Well, this week is Special Operations Forces Week here in Tampa, and the week has already begun. It runs today through Thursday downtown at the Tampa Convention Center, and the massive annual event draws close to 20,000 attendees, and it's expected to pump nearly $19 million into our local economy. The week brings together military leaders, international partners, and industry innovators to collaborate on future technologies and mission priorities. Things kick off today with a seminar focused on helping veterans transition to civilian success, covering everything from entrepreneurship to financial readiness. The event features nearly 180 speakers sharing their insights and advice. Now, if you are driving through downtown Tampa this week, you need to prepare for some significant traffic delays as well as street closures. Franklin Street will be closed right outside the convention center from Channelside Drive to the Harbor Island Bridge, and these closures run from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. through Thursday and from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. on Friday. The northbound lane of Franklin Street, the Water Street intersection, and the Harbor Island Bridge are scheduled to reopen Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Drivers are being asked to use the Beneficial Drive Bridge near Sparkman Wharf and the Florida Aquarium as an alternative route. Now, additionally, the Tampa Convention Center parking garage is completely closed through Thursday. Anyone heading to the area can find alternative parking at the Pam Iorio parking garage. Garrett?
All right, quite the scene there. Meanwhile, Nancy, we also saw an arraignment today in the case of the two USF students who were killed.
Yeah, so this case is going to involve both Zamil Lamone as well as Nahida Bristi. So their cases have been consolidated, which means that the suspect, that is Hisham Abu Garbe, he will be tried once for both of their murders. Now, he is facing 8 counts, and this is a death penalty case. Now, Florida updated its death penalty requirements in 2023, allowing capital sentencing if 2 specific specific criteria are met: a premeditated first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances and a suspect accused of multiple murders in a single incident or over time. Prosecutors filed a legal notice stating that the crime was cold, calculated, and premeditated, that it was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and that Abu Garbe has a prior violent felony conviction. Now, State Attorney Susie Lopez noted that premeditation is evident in the suspect's use of AI for ideas on how to dispose of a human body. Lopez says everything the defendant was thinking is seen in the ChatGPT questions he asked, and that he later got answers to those questions. Now, the exact motive behind these targeted killings of 2 USF students still remains unclear. And under a state law signed by Governor Ron DeSantis in 2023, a judge can now impose the death penalty if 8 out of 12 jurors vote in favor of execution. That law overturned a previous state requirement for a completely unanimous jury recommendation. Garrett?
All right, so that is a case that is getting a lot of attention. We'll continue to follow updates on that. Meanwhile, finally, in our Tampa Connection today, a lot of questions and some controversy, too, over the state's new policy when it comes to fishing licenses. Explain this for us.
Yeah, this has actually been our top story all day so far. So the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission changed the rules for non-Florida residents who want to get a recreational fishing license. So they changed it so they can no longer purchase a short-term 3-day or 7-day recreational fishing license online. Instead, these out-of-state visitors must now purchase them in person at a select tax collector office, a certain Walmart location, or a few specific bait and tackle shops. Now, previously, out-of-state anglers could purchase a 3-day fishing license for $17 or a 7-day fishing license for $30 through the state's website before arriving here for their trip. Now, only annual licenses are available online for non-residents. Captain Dylan Hubbard, who owns Hubbard's Marina in Madeira Beach, and he's also the president of the Florida Guides Association, says the sudden change is already impacting guides across the state. He says visitors are frustrated by the added step, and some are choosing to cancel or avoid booking trips altogether. He calls the new rule a major tourism deterrent, saying it is unreasonable to tell visitors to spend their vacation time at a local tax collector's office. He adds that Florida's fishing industry plays a major role in the state economy, especially in coastal communities like Tampa Bay, where tourism has a $1 billion economic impact. To fight the change, Hubbard launched an online petition that has already collected more than 3,000 signatures. He says the goal is to show state leaders how many people oppose the decision. Now, on the other side, the FWC says the change will keep online sales streamlined for the most popular licenses and encourage responsible participation by reducing the number of short-term purchases that are made each year. The agency also notes that license revenue directly funds conservation and management programs to support Florida fisheries. Now, the new rule does not affect all fishing guides equally. Saltwater charter guides often carry blanket licenses that cover all passengers on board. However, freshwater guides, along with kayak, surf fishing, and shark fishing guides, do not have that same option and rely on clients having their own individual licenses. Hubbard says he hopes Florida lawmakers will address the issue during upcoming state budget hearings and restore online access for short-term, non-resident licenses. For now, he is encouraging anglers and guides to contact their legislatures to voice their support to get that option back so that these non-Florida residents can purchase the short-term recreational fishing licenses online. Garrett?
All right. Certainly sparking some confusion. That is for sure. Fox 13 senior content producer Nancy Gay, we appreciate you joining us with our Tampa Connection today.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Live look at downtown Orlando, Lake Eola there, and some cloudy skies out there over downtown on this Monday afternoon. Going to bring in Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer joins me live now for our Florida Live forecast here on Florida Live. And TJ, I feel like we have jumped all the way into the summer, it feels like, with the rain we've been seeing, with the humidity for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's been bearable, but it's been creeping up. It feels like each day you're like, oh, I feel a little more today. Even getting out this morning, walking the dog, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I sat outside for a bit, but I'm like, this afternoon, I don't know if I'd want to do that.
It's summer mode. You just have to kind of like prepare for it, kind of plan around it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Garrett. We've had this strong onshore wind, and that's kind of keeping that sea breeze pinned a little closer to the Gulf Coast versus how it has been the last week or two, more closer to the East Coast, where we've seen more showers and storms, and we're kind of seeing that once again here today, and that looks like it's going to be kind of the setup this week with this area of high pressure in the Atlantic. We can see some of those showers and storms, though, working across the peninsula, mainly across South Florida. We've seen a couple of sprinkles here, though, across at least the heart of the state, but not too much. I think for the most part, aside from a spotty shower, maybe a rumble, the bulk of the moisture, even that will be hit or miss, but it should be a little closer to the Gulf Coast through the remainder of the evening. But we'll have to watch out for still a little bit of rain in some of our western neighborhoods. The heat, that's going to be our big story, but we are seasonable. Temperatures right now are approaching 90, but in the 90s inland. But notice with the help of that onshore wind, it feels a little comfier, a little cooler, some relief there on the beaches where temperatures are sitting in the low to mid 80s. Our dew points, though, the muggy meter had to break it out, a sign that we're going to start to feel more of that summertime sort of humidity that we get, and dew points are going to get back up into the mid 70s, getting into the humid to almost near oppressive category late in the week. And we're going to notice more of the moisture to support the potential for a few more showers and storms as well. But right now, we're expecting a mainly quiet night. A few clouds will fall back into the low to mid 70s, a little milder near the coast. And then tomorrow, once again, we'll see that potential for a few more showers and thunderstorms really focus west of the Orlando metro, with temperatures topping out right around 90. Our Fox weather model kind of hints at that through the rest of the day. You can see those spotty showers and storms working from east to west across central Florida. And we'll see anything that kind of does develop fade away through the overnight. And then tomorrow, kind of the same setup. We're dry to start, but during the afternoon and evening, we'll see those hit or miss showers and thunderstorms mainly near the Gulf. And mainly dry on the East Coast. But I'd say that at least for the most part, we're starting to see that potential, Garrett, for a little more moisture in the air and throughout the entire atmosphere. We're getting closer to the average start of the rainy season, late May. We're going to have the heat, we'll have the humidity, and we'll kind of be watching trends as we head through the next couple weeks to see if we actually really get into that full-fledged onset of the rainy season.
In the meantime, get ready for those upper 80s and lower 90s, it looks like.
Consistently, yeah. It doesn't seem like we're starting to get into the moment where it's like, each day, the same similar heat, humidity, and that afternoon threat of at least a few showers and storms.
Well, it's nothing that we're not used to.
No, that's for sure. At least we can, you kind of plan around that when you get into this time of the year in Central Florida.
That is very true. So we're just like we said, kind of in that pattern right now. And I tell you what, though, we know that the lawns are enjoying seeing some more of this moisture. Things looking green, a little greener already. Hopefully, putting a little bit of a dent in that drought, because it seems like the past few weeks, every time that new monitor comes out, not a whole lot has really changed.
No. And I feel like there are some spots like Melbourne is a little closer to where they should be, but still we're well below it across, Orlando. Little by little, I think we're going to get that help. But yeah, it's been tough, and I think little by little with each daily rain chance, we'll see that drought monitor hopefully getting eaten away at.
Yeah, little by little. It takes some time, that's for sure, when you're in that big of a hole. But Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us with our Florida Live forecast.
Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate it.
We are going to take another quick break here on Florida Live, give you another live look at downtown, and we'll be right back. Live look at Capitol Hill on this Monday afternoon in our nation's capital of Washington, D.C. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. There is a member of Congress from Florida who is one of the two leaders in a bipartisan effort to combat sexual misconduct and sexual harassment on Capitol Hill. It's something that we have heard about quite a bit in the news over the past few weeks and months. A number of high-profile resignations, an ongoing ethics probe into a member of Congress here in Central Florida, Corey Mills. We're talking about one of this task force that is being led by a member of the Republican Women's Caucus and the Democratic Women's Caucus. Florida Republican Congresswoman Kat Cammack is one of the two lawmakers that's leading this charge. I had the chance to speak with her today about this effort, why this is so important, and what they hope the end goals of this task force are. Started by asking her, first of all, how this all came about. Congresswoman Cammack, let's start here. Just talk to us about how this task force kind of came about to begin with.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, we have had no shortage of investigations, allegations, and of course, actual misconduct that has come forward. We recently had 2 expulsions of one Republican, one Democrat. And it really came to a point where I said, you know what? Accountability cannot begin and end with expulsions. We need to stop this behavior in its tracks because this is not a safe working environment for people up here on Capitol Hill. And so we have to do something. That's why the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, as well as Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, they came to the table and said, you know what, you're right, we should do this. And they are fully resourcing this working group, and we are underway.
Talk to us about the need for it, because we've seen some troubling data, not to mention the recent reports, but just, everything showing that this is a pervasive problem on Capitol Hill.
Absolutely. This is clearly a bipartisan problem, which is why it requires a bipartisan solution. So I'm really glad to be working with my counterpart, the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, Teresa Leger-Fernandez. And so as the Republican chair, I am focused on really working in a collaborative, bipartisan way to get to the root cause. Because like I said, you can't just expel everyone. We don't even want these situations to be taking place in the beginning. And so we have to address some of the gaps that exist. So you have training issues for both members and staff. You have a real fear of retaliation up here on Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill is a pretty small community. And once someone comes forward, they effectively get blackballed. So that stops people from coming forward, which really gives these creeps, I call them predators, a green light to continue this type of inappropriate and dangerous behavior. So we have training, we have a retaliation issue. We also have a resource problem. If today a 22-year-old woman found herself the victim of sexual misconduct, she wouldn't know where to go because there are a lot of resources, but they're not easy to find. So really streamlining this effort is going to be really important as well.
I feel like one of the things too that might also kind of add to the hesitancy to come forward is, well, is it even worth it? What's even going to happen if I do come forward?
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many women in particular I've spoken to that say, I would have come forward, but it just would have been referred to ethics, and ethics would have drug it out over the course of several years, and my career would have been over. And at the end of the day, they feel like they're having to make a choice between their career and their safety. And that's just not right. We know that there are reforms at the Ethics Committee, which is why we're going to be working with the Ethics Committee to try to properly resource them and streamline their process, but also House administration. Because what I have found in talking with folks is they say, well, I didn't realize that that was something I couldn't say or something that I couldn't do. And I think you have this spectrum of multiple generations up here on Capitol Hill. And what was okay maybe 40 years ago isn't necessarily okay today. And so we just need to make this a safe environment for everyone. Everyone needs to know what the guardrails are. And then we actually have to enforce it, because that's really, to your point, people are saying, well, is it even worth coming forward? And people need to understand that there will be consequences if you are engaging in inappropriate and illegal behavior.
So your task force then will be working with the ethics committee and some of those existing processes that are in place to make sure everything kind of fits together and is working the way it should.
Absolutely. We have already begun the conversations with House administration, which is kind of the body that monitors Capitol Hill, that really manages all of our offices, and we're working with them to identify ways that we can better address this issue. Like I said, one of the challenges that we have is that there's so many different offices that people don't even know where to go, and the training itself is laughable. It's a joke. You talk to anyone up here on Capitol Hill, they'll tell you the exact same thing. They turn on a YouTube video and they walk away for the next hour, and that's counted as, hey, I've done my training. That is not working, clearly. So working with these entities that are already set up, because we don't want to recreate the wheel, that's going to be the most effective way for us to actually drive real change and reform. This is not something that we're going to be working on for the next 2 years where we issue a report and hope something changes. We're going to be fast. We're going to be direct. We're going to make the real change so that every single person up here knows that they have resources, that there is recourse, and that there will be zero retaliation.
Congressman, you've been outspoken about this. You've been vocal about this in recent, weeks and months, especially. You're one of the few Republicans to kind of call out one of your colleagues, Corey Mills from Florida, who we know is facing some questions. Why is this issue and this topic so important?
Well, I think wrong is wrong and right is right. And in this case, I think my colleague from Florida is wrong. I believe he is engaged in unethical behavior, and he is going through the ethics process. So we eagerly await the results of that. But when you have a restraining order against someone, and that someone happens to be a constituent of mine, for dating violence and revenge porn, that doesn't really speak to the caliber of who we want here in Washington, D.C. We need people who are going to hold themselves and conduct themselves in a higher standard than what is expected. Because candidly, if Congress can't get this right, we can't expect everyone else and other organizations and industries to get this right. And so I believe that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, this issue transcends politics, and we have to be really, really careful of what we're willing to protect and what we're willing to tolerate. And in this case, I have a zero tolerance policy. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, we're going to hold you accountable. And so if that causes me problems within my own party, so be it. I've never been afraid to take on my own party, and I think at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do.
Why do you think this has become such a pervasive thing on Capitol Hill? Why do you think we're seeing it so often?
Candidly, I think it's because people know that if they come forward, they're effectively ending their careers. I cannot tell you how many women of every generation you can imagine have come to me in the last several months and have said, that happened to me when I was an intern, or this happened to me when I was a staff assistant. This happened to me when I was a chief of staff, or, maybe they are doing work for an association now on Capitol Hill, and they're not a staffer on Capitol Hill. They say, that happened when I was was a staffer. And they all have said consistently, I had to decide whether I was going to fight for my career or fight for my rights. And that is just simply a disaster in the making. That is just so fundamentally wrong. These two issues are not mutually exclusive. You can hold someone accountable and not tank your career. That's the message we're trying to drive here, is ending the retaliation as a core part of the work that we're doing. But I really think that because Capitol Hill is such a small place, it's a very small community, that when someone comes forward, they effectively get blackballed.
What would you say is the end goal of this task force and the work you'll be doing, the work you are doing?
You know, this is such a member-driven process. This coming Friday, we are actually bringing all of the Republican women and all of the Democrat women together for the first ever meeting. In an election year, you don't see this type of bipartisan collaboration, which again speaks to how important this issue is. So we are bringing all of the women together in a room to really put all of the ideas on the table, with the end goal being at the end of this year, or even sooner, we would hope for this to be sooner, for if anything were to happen to any staffer, they would immediately know without having to ask, without having to Google, without having to check. They would know exactly who to call, where to go, what to do. We would also hope that there was a streamlined process that wouldn't kick all of these investigations into ethics just to languish for years. That's typically what we've seen up to this point, is these investigations just go on for years and years and years, and people ultimately hope they go away. Our goal is to speed up that process so there's actually closure. And finally, I think that if we can change the culture on Capitol Hill, where people are really thinking twice before engaging in inappropriate behavior, before asking their staff for nude photos, before beginning sexual relationships with their staff, which is highly inappropriate, and abusing those powers, because let's be honest, there is a real power dynamic at play here, and a power imbalance when you have a member of Congress who is approaching and propositioning junior staff. That is a problem. So I am hopeful that the culture that we drive to change is a lasting one, because if we can do that, that means that my daughter, if God forbid she wants to serve on Capitol Hill one day, she won't have to contend with these same issues. I think all women, everyone candidly, should feel safe here on Capitol Hill, and that's what we're looking to change.
And what would be your message to, whether it's your current colleagues now or others who may be engaged in these sorts of behaviors, and what would you say to them as this work gets underway to kind of root it out?
You know, just because something is technically legal doesn't always mean that it is ethical. And again, I look to my colleagues, both on the Republican side and the Democrat side, and say, folks around the country are looking to us to uphold a higher standard. We need to set the bar, because we cannot expect other organizations, other industries, corporate America, legacy media, you name it. We cannot expect them to maintain a high standard of zero tolerance when it comes to sexual misconduct in the workplace if we in Congress are willing to tolerate it. So I am asking my colleagues to please take a step back, do some self-reflection, maybe not send that text at midnight with some winky faces and suggestive comments, maybe not engage in that relationship with a junior staffer. That is something that we really need to take a step back and have some self-reflection. And again, just hold each other accountable, because again, if we can't hold ourselves accountable, we can't expect anyone else to be.
Congresswoman Kat Cammack, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here on Florida Live.
Appreciate you.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. A woman in Lake County is facing charges of animal cruelty after police officers in Lady Lake say they found a dog in a hot car that they believed had been there for at least 40 minutes. They were able to rescue that pup. You're about to see the body camera video showing that rescue, what they found, and also the moment they took the suspect, 26-year-old Yanis Morahone, into custody.
What's up? Thank you. Hi. It's a puppy.
Dog's pretty warm. It's pretty hot in the car. Yeah. Check with Corporal, see what he wants to do. I mean, it's a puppy. Ears are cooking.
Hot with my pen. Look at that. We got our own lock kit. This one don't want to open.
Here. Come on. It's hot in here. Come on. Come on, boys. Come on. Come on. Come on. Over here. Come on. Come on, Goober. Come on. Come on. Yeah. I know. Think she's thirsty? Yeah. Over here. Come on. Yeah, she's warm. Your dog?
We're gonna lay in there for a second.
Well, we've been here for 10 minutes.
We'll send them along.
Okay. You have your ID?
In the car.
All right. Turn around. I'm going to arrest you for animal cruelty.
How's it cruelty?
You want to sit in that hot car for as long as that dog was?
The windows are down. I wasn't.
The windows are not down. They're cracked that much.
Okay, we'll get.
Go ahead and do it this way. If you want to do it that way, then. Back in my car.
Which one, this one?
Yep. Went to voicemail.
So that video showing the arrest of that suspect, 26-year-old Eunice Morahone, who is now charged with animal cruelty in that case. And this comes with a reminder from the Lady Lake Police Department in sharing this, and also just something to keep in mind, just how quickly the inside of those cars of your vehicle really warms up. It doesn't take long for that temperature to rise, even if it's 80, 90 degrees outside. You saw the windows cracked, but they said it was still very clearly hot inside that vehicle. You could see the dog panting and drinking the water once it was let out. So just a word of caution. It is that time of year, just how warm it gets here in Florida. And don't leave pets, children, anything in hot cars unattended. Well, we are out of time here on Florida Live. Appreciate you joining us today. Our live streaming news coverage does continue next on Fox Local. So if you're watching us on our digital platforms, we'll have more coming up for you in just a minute. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Facebook. A new report says about half of the things that are orbiting Earth is considered space junk, which is kind of mind-blowing to think about. Half of the things, 50% of what is orbiting Earth right now. And that is a number that could even increase as we see more launches. But there are questions about, first of all, how do you find that? How do you take care of it? How do you clean it up? And what does this mean for the impact in the future? More launches, space travel. What are the takeaways? What's the fallout from this? Fox 35's Esther Bauer had the chance to speak with Zach Aubert earlier today, who's one of our space experts, about what all this means and what we need to know about that kind of mind-blowing number of 50% and a growing percentage of space junk in Earth orbit.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and it's one that a lot of countries and companies are looking at with the amount of space junk that's up there. It wasn't really something anyone really worried about until a few years ago, and I think that's just because of how much we've been launching. Up until SpaceX, we launched like 5,000 things. Now SpaceX alone has put up like over 11,000 Starlink satellites alone. So, and that's just a start. They want to do over 1 million now. So now the question is, how do we get rid of the old space junk that we don't know is there? And the biggest issue is we don't know what we don't know is there. There's probably a lot of little stuff that we can't actually see or track from these older missions in the early space era. There's a lot of companies working on trying to build kind of basically second stages of rockets that can either launch a payload and then divert and have a secondary mission, or just launch as an independent vehicle to actually do cleanup, basically garbage trucks for space. That'll hopefully come online by the end of the decade.
The safety threat that it poses for the folks, on the ISS. Talk about that, and then also talk about the threat of if you were to launch a payload, $1 billion payload, and it were to hit some space junk, it could derail the entire mission. So what are some of the hazards that are real world that companies are having to deal with because there's so much junk in space?
Yeah, so for things like space station, it's definitely something they watch. We know the station can kind of move with its thrusters if it needs to, if we detect something. Obviously, one of the big concerns years ago, Russia conducted, I believe it was an ASAT test, which was they tried to blow up a satellite, which then obviously makes like a range of garbage, which every country otherwise basically says, no, we don't do that anymore because of that risk. The things like that is what causes the biggest risk. A lot of the garbage that would risk the station, we generally know where it is because new missions aren't doing it, and we kind of know the space station's orbit. But for launching new things, we saw even with Artemis, yeah, we had a 2-hour window, but within that window, we actually only had about 108 minutes that we could launch in. Now, that wasn't only just because of space junk, that's because of operational satellites and things as well. But it is a thing that as we get more and more stuff in space, you're going to basically have these narrow corridors that you can launch through to actually get to, depending which orbit you're going to. So wanting to clean it up is definitely going to be a big thing. It opens up more orbits that we can do, but it's going to take a lot of time. And the biggest thing is who's going to foot the bill. You don't get a reward for go cleaning up space, just like you don't get a reward for cleaning up our planet.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, do you think it's going to force the industry to slow down? Like there is just too much junk, we can't keep launching at this kind of cadence. What do you foresee happening in the future while it takes time to develop this new technology? How will it affect the launch cadence?
I'm not sure it'll directly affect cadence. I think a lot of the launch providers that are online right now do their best to not leave stuff in orbit. There's only a few Falcon 9 second stages that have been left up in space over the last few years, and that's because those were mission specific that they had to be disposed of in that way. Normally, like every second stage gets a deorbit burn, and we see that with a lot of the other companies, doing their best to, if they can't bring it all the way back down to dispose it into our atmosphere, they put it on an orbit that it lasts weeks or at minimum years. We're trying not to put stuff in that hundreds of years that it gets stuck in orbit, if we have no control on it. But also all of that is tracked. So even these second stages, we know exactly where they are. So we're able to follow them and see them as they slowly decay their orbits, and then try to move stuff out of the way if we need to. So I'm not sure it'll directly affect the cadence of launches at the current rate. If we start launching a ton of new stuff and we start leaving more things in orbit, one of the big things people are watching is Starlink. More and more people are like, why are more Starlinks coming home like every few days? Well, we're at the point that those first generation Starlinks are now basically reaching their best buy date, and we're now having to actually replace them, which means those 11,000 Starlink satellites in the next 6 years all have to come home. But we also need to replace all of them. So there's a lot of tracked junk that we'll have to bring home, on top of the garbage that we left up there the last 50, 60 years. For the companies that are trying to clean it up, I know I was at a conference in England 2 years ago. They had another one last year. The entire conference was about orbital manufacturing and orbital cleanup. And there are dozens of companies basically making, hungry hippos, big nets, different things that either they can catch it and then deorbit their entire vehicle. But the bigger hope is they can catch it, deorbit the vehicle, release the junk, and then fire their engine again, that their vehicle stays in orbit and can go do more. So basically a garbage truck for space. But again, who's going to pay the bill?
Right. I mean, do you see government as getting involved in footing those with grants and government contracts or no?
I think there'll probably be some subsidies from governments for it. I think it comes down to, if this was your junk, is it your responsibility to get rid of it? We know there's old Saturn V parts and, early NASA rockets and basically missiles that are still in orbit. So, should that be NASA's responsibility to take down or at least fund the removal of it? I mean, maybe. We have a lot of new rules under the Artemis Accords and the International Space Treaty on, how to make space for everyone and not dirty it all up. So I'm not sure it's questions that have really been asked. And I think that's where it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. The other side is some people want to not just dispose of the junk, but can we pick it up and bring it back? And then, can you almost have those disposal places like you do here where you take all your junk metal and maybe you get some money for it? Could you do that with satellites or things like that? So it's kind of opening probably a whole new industry of seeing what that is. And it'll be interesting to see, is that industry one that, it's itself, or does not SpaceX, but, would another company hire them? So, hey, in 10 years, go delete our satellite, and things like that. Is that an industry we'll see open? And we're going to have a lot more of those questions as we get these hundreds of thousands of satellites launched over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that's the big question is, can we even put that much in orbit? There's a lot of space, but will we actually be able to navigate all of it?
Zach Aubert, the Launchpad Network, speaking with Fox 35's Esther Bauer. Let me give you a live look right now in Simi Valley, California, where crews are fighting a rapidly growing wildfire. This is what is being known as the Sandy Fire, and you can see when they zoom in there, the acreage that it has already charred and active flames still burning on these hillsides in California. So this fire was first reported at 10 acres with 0% containment at 10:53 this morning. And then looking at the CAL FIRE updates, by 11:16, they said it had grown to 184 acres. Looks like the helicopter there getting some more water to aid in the effort to fight this fire because it has grown quickly. CAL FIRE saying it has been spreading dangerously fast, threatening a number of homes there. You can see just how close it is burning to a number of those homes in this neighborhood in Simi Valley. They said it's threatening not just the buildings, the homes, but infrastructure in that area. So they've got quite a bit of air and ground resources that are helping with this. There are evacuation orders, evacuation warnings in place for several different zones in that area. Still very much an active scene. Again, this was a fire that started just before 11 o'clock this morning and has continued to grow. Containment still at 0% at last check. The cause of this is under investigation, but it looks like active flames there burning in the backyard of one of those buildings, one of those homes there. And so something that we are continuing to watch, continuing to track as this burns. Again, this is in California. These live images coming to us courtesy of KTTV. And so this is something we're going to be keeping an eye on throughout the afternoon in the Los Angeles area. As these evacuation warnings and evacuation orders are in place, the conditions there obviously ripe for this to spread very quickly, as we have seen just in the last little bit. And you can see the flames, the smoke, a scary scene there. And so we'll be keeping an eye on this. Right now, we are going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll keep bringing you these live images as we get them as well throughout the afternoon. But we're going to step aside, take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Continuing to track this fire, the Sandy fire out of Southern California. These live images coming to us courtesy of KTTV, where this 184-acre fire is continuing to burn, continuing to grow with very little containment at this time, and a number of evacuation orders and warnings in place. You can see those flames crawling up the hillside there, and when they zoom out, I thought it was striking to see just how close it is to many of those homes in that area. Again, Simi Valley, where this is in Southern California, outside of Los Angeles, Ventura County, and the smoke, the flames. This is a fire, again, that broke out just a little bit ago this morning, and it has grown substantially in the time since. You see a fire truck there. We have seen helicopters as well working to help put out this fire. We are seeing that there are a number of units trying to fight this on the ground and in the air, trying to get this under control right now. Again, close to 200 acres with 0% containment right now. They are evacuating a number of these homes that you see. If they have not already been evacuated, I would hope they have already been. They have in this area zones, evacuation zones. Obviously, with us not being there, I don't know exactly what these zones are, but I'm seeing a list of these zones, some under evacuation orders, which is essentially telling them to leave now. The area is now closed to public access because of an immediate threat to life. And then an evacuation warning, which is a potential threat. They're saying this is kind of a heads up, giving a warning that folks should leave. So there's evacuation orders in these immediate areas, evacuation warnings in some other areas as this fire continues to burn. We are going to continue to keep an eye on that this afternoon. We'll keep these live pictures up for you as that situation develops on this Monday afternoon. Certainly a scary situation as that wildfire is spreading. We are keeping an eye on a couple of other stories of national interest here today, including we heard just a little bit ago from the defense attorneys for Alex Murdaugh. He was an attorney in South Carolina who was charged with the deaths of his wife and kids. But if you may remember from last week, the story of the South Carolina Supreme Court overturning the conviction on those murder charges because they said essentially that the clerk was acted inappropriately in essentially telling the members of the jury not to fall for the Murdaugh defense. And so that he is now going to get a new trial. Prosecutors have said they will retry him, but that previous conviction overturned. I want to play for you a little bit of that news conference earlier today when we heard from those attorneys the defense attorneys for Alex Murdaugh talking about how they will move forward and new developments in that case.
Today in United States District Court, federal court, the Charleston Division, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of Richard Alexander Murdaugh Sr. versus Rebecca Hill. In this lawsuit, we file it under the Federal Civil Rights Statute, 42 United States Code 1983, to redress constitutional deprivation of rights. Those rights were Alex's right to a fair trial, a right that him be tried before an untampered, untainted jury. With the South Carolina Supreme Court's ruling, it has been adjudged as a matter of state law that she deprived Alex of his constitutional rights, deprived him of a right to a fair trial, And as a result, we've got to do it all over again, which nobody wants to do. The damages that we've alleged include the over $600,000 that was spent to try the first case and other compensatory damages. Now let me be clear. Alex Murdaugh owes a lot of people a lot of money. None of this money that is recovered will go to him personally. And the purpose of this lawsuit is to hold Becky Hill accountable for what she did. She has not been held account at all for her conduct. And two is to investigate exactly what she did, which we'll be able to do through the course of civil litigation. We have subpoena power. We can take depositions. And so we're going to be able to understand the entire scope of her conduct. She's yet to be thoroughly investigated by the state, and she's not been held accountable by the state. And that's what we hope to do, and that's what we intend to do, and that's what we will do with this lawsuit. Thank you. Phil, what you got?
I would just amplify that and say that, you know...
Can you hold it till the plane goes over?
The jury process, the integrity of the jury process was violated by somebody sworn to uphold it. And that's why we're here today, and that cannot go unanswered, as Jim said. And that's what we're going to do with this lawsuit. Beyond that, we've alleged $600,000 in damages. That's a public number, by the way. There was a receivership. That money was allocated from receivership for the defense. That was a waste because of what Becky Hill did, plus other damages alleged. And beyond that, we are going to find out exactly what happened. There will be depositions, there will be subpoenas, and she will be held to account for her actions.
Any questions? None? Okay.
Do you guys have any new evidence to present your case going forward?
Well, we have. Where'd you go for? Right. Okay. We have received a number of pieces of information post-trial. Some of them came just to us. Some of that came just to us. Some of that went to SWED too, and we don't know what they did with it. Once the trial was over, we don't have the power to subpoena. We don't have the power to really investigate it all. All we did was, after the trial, was look into the jury misconduct, and we rode around Carlton County for a couple months through the swamp on the dirt roads to find these jurors and ask them questions. But once a judge is appointed, and I think we got an order on Friday that the Chief Justice has said, once the remittitor is issued, which means it goes, right now the Supreme Court has the case, they got to remit it to a trial court, and he'll do that, we think, in the next couple of weeks. So at that point, then we will have subpoena power. Then we will have the ability to investigate.
With the new murder trial, how hard do you think it is going to be to find impartial jurors?
Well, let me say this to you. This has gotten extraordinary notoriety, unlike most other cases I've ever tried. But in its time, a case I prosecuted 40 years ago, Pee Wee Gaskins, Monk was there, Pee Wee Gaskins, we had to go through 400 jurors to get 14. It's important that we have, what we want is individual voir dire. That means we individually question the jurors, which is not usually allowed in anything but a death penalty case. So we think we can get them. Now, can we get it in Carlton County? That's debatable, but and I think the state has the same interest, should have the same interest we have in finding 12 or 14 with alternates, impartial, fair jurors. The state should want an unsullied, uninfluenced jury as much as we do.
And have you talked to Alec recently? How does he feel about the overturn?
Jim talked to him this morning.
Yeah, we've talked to Alec a lot lately about.
So the defense team for Alex Murdaugh announcing that lawsuit that they are now filing over this because of the new trial that they will have to go through. It's going to certainly be a long process. Meanwhile, let me get you live right now to this event where we are hearing from Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This is an event in Washington, D.C. with the EPA administrator where they're talking about the PFAS, the forever chemicals in water, making an announcement about some efforts to combat that, and also having a bit of a roundtable discussion here. So let's go ahead and listen in as Secretary Kennedy speaks live from Washington, D.C.
You Republicans who supported the PFAS legislation that began this process. I've read a couple of articles in the corporate media that suggest that EPA is trying to roll back PFAS regulations. It's not true. I've met repeatedly with Lee and his staff, and they're completely committed to ending exposures in a way that's legal and practical. As Lee pointed out, the Biden administration passed a rule very hastily in which they ignored a Clean Water Act mandate for a public comment period. That means I've fought many Administrative Procedure Acts and Clean Water Act cases, hundreds of them literally, and I can tell you that that was a fatal flaw. This regulation from the Biden administration would not stand a court challenge, and the court challenge has already been filed. And what we're doing today is shaving years from a process where that regulation would get thrown out and we would have to start again. And we're doing it in a way that maintains the Clean Water Act levels, the maximum contaminant, Safe Drinking Water Act levels, the maximum contaminant levels, and gives maximum production as quickly as possible to the American public. And one of the really exciting things that's happened since Administrator Zeldin and I came in 16 months ago, there's been an explosion in technology for removing PFAS and destroying it. That will make it much more affordable for these little water districts that are already besieged by costs, and many of them are near bankruptcy. And I'm looking very forward to hearing the comments from some of these companies today that have developed some of these technologies. But Lee and I get besieged probably weekly with people who want to showcase new technologies for removing PFAS. Well, I'm very encouraged. Plus, we have a president who's completely committed to removing PFAS, to understanding it, understanding the exposures, and to eliminating those exposures for the American public. And has made a greater financial commitment to understanding PFAS and removing it than any president in history. At HHS, our responsibility is to better understand what these chemicals are doing to human health and how we can reduce exposures and move forward. NIH and our other federal health agencies are currently supporting more than 40 research groups studying how PFAS exposure affects children's development, pregnancy outcomes, immune function, metabolic health, fertility, liver toxicity, and chronic disease risk. Researchers are studying how PFAS exposures during pregnancy may affect birth outcomes and childhood development. Other NIH-supported work is examining links between PFAS exposures and immune system suppression, inflammation, liver injury, and metabolic disorders like obesity and diabetes. Emerging research is also exploring how PFAS may alter the gut microbiome and contribute to chronic disease. Last month, HHS launched STOMP, Systematic Targeting of Microplastics, a first-of-its-kind federal initiative focused on improving how the government measures, studies, and removes microplastics and nanoplastics from the human body. We are expanding research into the environmental drivers of chronic disease with transparency and accountability.
Secretary Kennedy continuing to speak at this event in Washington, D.C. But we're out of time here on Fox 35 News Plus. Appreciate you joining us today. Going to hand things off to the Fox 35 Storm Team and Fox 35 Weather Plus. And then after that, stay tuned for the 407 and Fox 35 News at 5 right here on Fox Local. Thanks for joining us, and the news continues coming up in just a couple of minutes.